trucks, part of the great American pastime. Whether it's your dad's old C10, a 93 Ford Lightning, or a Ram 1500, or any of our JDM counterparts, if you aren't enjoying the utility of a bed, 2 or 4 doors, and the horsepower of a V8 under the hood, you are missing out on something truly and uniquely American. So today we're not just talking about trucks. We could have a very special and long session, a long episode, specifically talking about, I don't know, we could do an entire episode that would take 3 hours just talking about the F-150, right? We'd have to break up into a multi-part episode talking about the very first Ford truck, the first V8 truck, F1, the F100, the F150, and then the F150's counterparts, the 250, the 350, and the 450. I think there's actually a 550 now. So, you know, massive trucks here, powerful trucks, massive platforms, frame platforms that can haul and tow a shitload of weight. We could talk, I'd have to go learn about all the different Rams that they've built over the years, the Silverados. I mean, we could sit here and we could talk about the Ranger for an endless amount of time. But today's episode, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about kind of a more niche target audience for truck consumers, the sport and muscle trucks throughout the year. So trying to nail down the lineage here, your very first, and when I say sport and muscle, I mean anything that's meant for the street, really. You've got your very first muscle trucks, which are really cars that wanted to be trucks, but that's kind of where some of these concepts and ideas get their lineage from, is in 1957, built off of the full-size station wagon platform of the time. You had the Ford Ranchero. I didn't actually realize this until I started to do a little bit of research on it. And I guess I had kind of run across this early on when I was looking at Rancheros. But Ranchero came before El Camino. El Camino didn't come out until 1959. They were catching up to Ford, and actually because the El Camino offered a 348 big block, and that offered significant more power than the smaller, I think it was a 300 and a 289. I think originally in there was an inline 6 and a 289 V8 in the Ranchero. So that offered a significant amount of power over those. And then plus, obviously, Chevy's killing it back then with some of those big blocks. It's not until later, really, that Ford kicks things up. You also have to remember that's around the time period where the horsepower wars hadn't started yet. But the big three were out of racing entirely. And I think this was probably around the starts of Chevy and Dodge going back to racing. So they had that moratorium on racing for quite a while. But the other two car companies were not really honoring that. Ford was just coming out of their slump, their World War II slump, and was just starting to make a comeback under Hank the Deuce's leadership. So while the Ranchero platform did pretty well, I don't believe that popularity in the mainstream reached as significant as it did with the El Camino. However, by the 1960s, about 10 years after the Ranchero's inception, When muscle cars had really hit the scene, you watch El Camino and Ranchero kind of transition from this utility piece that's kind of giving 50s man, early 60s man, the utility of truck with the sporty vibe of like a Thunderbird or a Corvette at the time, because your Ford Mustang and your Camaro, Chevy Camaro, had not come out yet. But then with the creation in '64 and then later in, you have to forgive me, I'm not a Camaro guy. You have, 64, 67 is really the onset of American muscle, right? You have pony car and American muscle is coming onto the scene. And not saying that Thunderbird and Corvette aren't American muscle, but those were really more sport cars. It's not until we see Mustang, Camaro, Charger come on the scene that American muscle is truly born. And with that comes an update to the El Camino and the Ranchero. In fact, in 1968, this is getting a little off topic, but it's extremely notable and we have to talk about it. In 1968, Ford, under Hot Rod magazine, the Ford Ranchero was taken to the Baja 1000 by Ack Miller, raced by Ack Miller and Ray Brock, and they won. Became absolute legends overnight. It is notable, but not going to be talked about this session, as we're not strictly doing off-road or just straight pickups. While Chevrolet did not field an El Camino platform, Bill Strop did race a modified Chevy pickup, and they later, let's see, what does this say here? Strop built a small fleet of trucks to take on a 1967 inaugural run. They all successfully reached the finish line. This was at the Trek at La Paz, the Trek to La Paz. So while Chevy was there, they did not race the El Camino versus Ranchero. I don't think we actually ever saw a proper El Camino Ranchero tag up. But if you want to see a proper El Camino versus Ranchero, you can go head over to, I think they're on HBO now. They had a 68 Ranchero on Roadkill, of course, and Ranchero, and of course also was Finnegan's wife's El Camino. I'm not sure what year that was. I want to say it was like a 69 or a 70 or something, but a very nice looking silver or gray El Camino. But that's the closest thing I think you're going to see between a matchup between them. Now, those truck cars, obviously not full trucks, right? You have the F100 that exists back then. You have F1 trucks driving around. You've got the C10 back then. Forgive me, I'm not as familiar with your Ram and Chevy trucks, but that's really what I would think of as a street truck or sport truck or muscle truck. Now, all those cars should not have been unibody. Those should all have been, they originated as body on frame, as most cars were at the time. If you don't know, so that's what we're talking about, is the body of the car, the shell of the car goes on top of a frame, which is what all the axle and driveline and where the engine actually sits. Whereas later on, cars like my 82 GT or even your modern car, like my 19 Mustang, are all built on unibody, meaning it's all one, the frame and the shell are all one piece. If you don't know, this also means that body on frame is much stronger. The frame is independently built for support to suspension and bearing weight, and your body is more of a cosmetic look. And if you have problems with the body, you can simply pick up and move to a new frame. Or if you have problems with the frame, you can pick up the body and move to a new frame. It also makes it a lot easier and a lot more sturdy to do replacements or rebuilds or restos, as I am quickly finding out with my own resto project that I've been funding. but it makes it more difficult when you have unibody, that if there's issues with the car, if there's issues with the body, sometimes certain things, like if a vehicle's in an accident, if the vehicle's been sitting out in a field and has endured a lot of rust and weathering, sometimes you just can't save cars like that. And unfortunately, because it's all one piece, it makes it a little bit harder to salvage. But to the point, the reason the Ranchero and the El Camino are in the sport truck, muscle truck list, and not just a goofy car with a goofy car with a bed like some of the trucks that we have today, is because they were indeed body on frame, and they did have some towing capacity and some hauling capacity as well. Not that I would overly recommend it, but if you look on Roadkill, there's actually quite a few instances of them hauling a shitload of stuff in the back of their Ranchero and Finnegan's wife's El Camino. In fact, I think in one of them they put an entire engine in the back of that they were going to replace in the back of Finnegan's wife's El Camino. I have to say Finnegan's wife's El Camino because it was not his; it was his father-in-law's, and then got passed to her, and then responsibility of taking care of it, maintaining it, and then any restoration then of course lies with the mechanic husband, which is Finnegan. My apologies. So 60 to 71, I actually just looked this up real quick. 60 to 71, the Ranchero was a unibody. It says it was on a Falcon platform and then later a Fairlane platform, which Fairlane platforms combining the frame and body into one welded unit. It's still the 60s, so to me that's still a really robust platform. It's not like the 80s and 90s where things got a little flimsy, aluminum and plasticky. But then in 72 they did return to a body on frame. Now I did also look up, and it says that the El Camino, and again, I am not familiar, from 59 to 60 was on a robust X-frame, full-sized body, B-body, utilized a robust X-frame. Oh, okay, yes, so body on frame, but then shifted to mid-sized A-body, later a G-body in 64 to 87, platform utilizing traditional perimeter frame shared with wagons and sedans. I have no idea what that second one means because I am not a Chevy guy. I would not know what that means. Oh, okay. So yeah, up at the top it does say the El Camino was body on frame. I guess that was just a more explanation that I was looking for. But at any rate, these were pretty robust, for all intents and purposes, trucks. Kind of looked like cars, but had the muscle and sportness of a truck, of a V8 truck. As we move forward in time, as I mentioned, unfortunately, the Ranchero fell off in 79, but the El Camino continued up into 87. And that's kind of where your sport truck dies for a little while. Now, mind you, things did start to fall off in the 70s, and that I'm actually pretty surprised that the Ranchero lasted as long as it did, because as we've talked about multiple times before on the show, the 70s was a great era of dark ages as far as horsepower went because of the Iran oil crisis. Wait, what's going on right now? Anyways, we see a lot of changes. I'm very surprised to see this here. I didn't even know that Ranchero lasted as long as it did. I knew El Camino lasted all the way up into the 80s because you could still find them. And there's actually some like cool retro-looking El Caminos out there that you could grab. As far as Dodge goes, it looks like 70 was the highlight for Chevy with 454 Chevy El Camino SS. But as far as Dodge goes, they really didn't get in there until the Lowell Red Express and the 1989 Shelby Dakota. Now, those are more pickups. They're not really, I don't really consider those sport trucks. We could talk about those in a different episode. I mean, there's an entire episode we could have talking about how not only did Shelby come in and make the entire racing and performance division for Ford, along with Racing Greats and Lee Iacocca, racing greats like McLaren and Ken Mile. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just brain farted on that. It is late at night that I'm recording this. But not only did he go and provide the foundation for the racing and performance programs at Ford, but later on in the 1980s, he went to go help out his good buddy Lee Iacocca, save Dodge's bacon. They made a lot of great stuff over there, and actually in the 80s, low-key, during some continued gas price issues and oil crisis stuff, as the other companies were grappling with either killing their programs or just saying fuck it and pouring money into gas guzzlers, Dodge was trying to make the best of a bad situation. Unfortunately, they did do away with their classic like Dodge program, Dodge Challenger and Dodge Charger program, and we did see those cars disappear till later in the 2000s, only for the spotlight to be replaced by cars like the Firebird and other Trans Am Pontiac products. But, not to get off topic, the sport pickup wars don't really pick back up again until 1990. Chevy comes back with a 454 SS big block in one of their pickups. And then, of course, 93, you have the SVT Lightning. Not to be undermentioned, one of their smaller trucks, the GMC Cyclone in 1991, featured a I can't remember if that was a single or a twin. I want to say it was a twin turbocharged V6, and they're actually extremely expensive and hard to find today. I would rate them in the Cyclone I would rate in a slightly different category. I would talk about those in small trucks. I think there's a little more niche stuff that I would put that into. I wouldn't really call that a sport or a muscle truck. I would say that the Lightning 100%. Muscle/sports truck. The 90s were a good era for in the 90s and early 2000s were a great era for sports trucks. They made a small comeback. We had fantastic highlights like the second generation Ford Lightning, also known as the Ford Lightning II, featuring a 5.4 supercharged with a Eaton M112, M113 supercharger. The internal, so you might have a 5.4 Triton at home in a like 99 generation to 2005 Ford F-150, but I assure you that truck engine is not the same as the Lightning's engine. The Lightning's engine is rated to withstand far more boost and far more horsepower than your standard 5.4 Triton. 5.4 Triton is only rated to withstand about 420, 450 horsepower. I don't remember how many pound-feet it's rated to withstand. I asked Gemini and Grok if they thought that my stock internal 5.4 Triton would be able to handle about 5 pounds of boost and try to get as close to 400 as possible. Gemini and Grok both say yes, but we are testing the limits of longevity and wear and tear on your Triton. They're great engines for beating the piss out of them over a long period of time, but they are not indestructible. They're not bulletproof like the Lightning was. The Lightning featured fully forged bottom and top end, and those engines were rated, out of the factory, they were near to 400 horsepower. And the M112, M113 Eaton superchargers pumped out about 6 to 8 pounds of boost. Swapping the pulley on those, just like doing with your 2003-2004 Ford Mustang Cobra Terminator, could see a significant boost increase and thus a significant horsepower increase. Bottom line, your 5.4 liter Lightning II engine is rated to withstand close to 800 horsepower and I can't remember. Let's just say 700 foot-pound torque, which is a lot of power to be running through that. I believe it's a 4R70 transmission, and they were not 4x4, so they were all rear-wheel drive only. In addition to the Lightning 2, you have the 500 horsepower Viper V10 powered Dodge Ram SRT. Now, I will say I have a buddy with a early 2000s, maybe it's a 2010 Ford Ram 1500, and I will tell you, facelift on the front grille and a different hood. I've been seeing these things drive around. Lower it, put it in one of Dodge's famous bright like green or blues, or black that bitch the fuck out. Maybe even a dark purple too. Those, I've seen one driving around that's like a dark red maroon. Those trucks look hot. Not necessarily an SRT10. I think they were SRT8s, but I would fuck with it really hard. I like muscle sport trucks of the late 90s. I like sport trucks of the early 90s as well. I think the Lightning one is a great truck. If I could get my hands on one without the wife being like, there's no back seats, why did you buy this? Sell one of the Mustangs. Just kidding. She'd never ask me to do that. But she would be asking me why there's no back seats, because unlike my Mustang, I can throw the kid in the back. It's just a pain in the ass. I can't throw the kid in the back of my pickup, like in the bed. So I have to have back seats, which also leads to, and in my research poll here, this isn't even pull it up. I'm actually a little bit shocked. So in the early 2000s, actually I think in 99, you have a super cab, which was the NASCAR edition, 1999 NASCAR edition Ford F-150. I think it came with the 4.6. It didn't come with the 5.4 to my recollection. I think it was slightly lowered. It looked cool. It had cool graphics. There's literally nothing performance-wise a difference between the NASCAR edition in 99 and just a regular, what would that be, the XLT or the XL of the same year. However, when you get into, I believe it's 2003, maybe 2004, 2005, they also partnered with Harley Davidson. Now, I can't remember if they'd had partnerships with Harley Davidson in the past, but this is the one that's most notable to me because I saw them driving around a lot when I was a kid. And if I recall, my dad or my godfather really wanted to get their hands on one. Unfortunately, my dad opted for a 4x4. I think it had a lift kit, it had all kinds of off-road stuff done to it. XLT, 4x4 Sport, I believe, if I recall, it was a super cab, and it had a 5.4 Triton in it, and the rear main seal was always giving him a pain in the ass. And the thing was leaking oil and leaking transmission fluid on a regular basis. But Ford and Harley Davidson partnered and released the Harley Davidson Edition F-150. Now, they came in either all black with an orange stripe, or they came two-toned with like silver on the bottom, but significantly more silver on the bottom and black on top. I believe they had a special hood, a little bit similar to the Lightning, but a little more bulbous hood. They were super cabs, if I remember, not super cruise. I'd have to go check that, though. And they featured, much like the Lightning, a side dump exhaust, a twin side dump exhaust. Now, today you can still buy and like convert your what would that be, the Gen 2 F-150 or like the Gen 6 Ford truck of the early 2000 era. You can convert your exhaust. You can do a drop kit on the truck, similar to what I'm looking to do with a little project of mine. But you can build your sport truck off of that. Now, I know you're probably wondering, Stash, why didn't you talk about stuff like muscle truck, like on Roadkill? They have, of course, the aptly named muscle truck. I believe it's a old Chevy C10. I would 100% talk about that. But the problem with that truck is that they do a lot of off-road. They do a lot of dirt. That truck is like a multi-utility truck. I really just wanted to talk about truck applications that cannot be used. Like the difference between the Lightning and another pickup truck is I can make the other pickup truck into a street truck and I can take it off-roading. The Lightning, if you took off-roading, people would think you were fucking crazy, and also you need a lift kit for that. So this is not just like everyday trucks that can perform the task of making noise and doing burnouts down the streets or drag racing. This, and then also do off-roading and dirt. This is strictly doing burnouts, racing, drag racing, street, sport, muscle trucks. Now, I do believe muscle trucks can be off-roaders as well, but sport trucks, what I'm talking about here, street sport trucks, cannot do the job of off-roading, nor should they. You don't want to be busting brake lines and snapping axles or bending axles off-roading in a truck that's not meant to do that. Plus ripping off, a beautiful body kit or a bumper, getting stuck on a rock or something like that. So unfortunately, though, we kind of see that die off. They did one last run, I believe 2012 or 2013 is the last run of the Harley Davidson, featuring a 6.2 or 6.5, I can't really remember, push rod, iron block push rod. Great engines. I've heard a lot of good things about them. They're indestructible. I've also heard that they're a bitch and a half for maintenance, and for some whatever god-awful reason, they featured a dual spark plug system. Somebody's going to have to explain to me how that works. I'm not super read up on that, but I imagine that was probably a lot of unneeded extra systems there, and in maintenance, and then of course like tuning and timing and stuff. But I digress. We don't really see anything come back for a while until like the 2014s, 2015s. The Roush Nightmare hits the scene. Now there is an Celine does some trucks, but they're not as commonplace and they're pretty hard to find. You'd be better off just putting a Celine body kit on your F-150 and putting a drop on it than trying to find one of these things. And there's really, engine-wise, there's really no difference. I believe that was 5.4 Triton era as well. It was not a Coyote era. But luckily, the Roush Nightmare was a 5.0 Coyote supercharged. We got that in 13 or 14, I believe. Really awesome looking trucks. They've maintained their value over the years. And we've seen the resurgence. 2025, 2026, they brought back the Nightmare. It's like 700, 800 horsepower again. But if you're looking for something a little bit cheaper, and I was really, really surprised to see this, the Lobo name, which has long been commercial marketing down in Mexico and South America. Lobo means wolf. Ford actually did a lot of great marketing for, like, the Fiesta, if you don't know, Mexican TA. Mexican TA, that's why the car was named the Fiesta, and it aptly had a couple other like models that went along with it. But that's where you get the Fiesta from. They just happen to sell them here in the United States as well. But that was the target consumer audience there. So part of the reason we're talking about this is because recently we did mention and talk about the Ford Maverick. Now the Ford Maverick, to much sadness, is a car that is lying and masquerading and fooling people into thinking it's a truck, whereas the Ranchero was a truck that was disguised as a car, as a very beautiful and aggressive looking muscle car, but a truck nonetheless. Well, they put a drop kit on the Maverick, gave it the same 2.3 EcoBoost with a slightly larger tune package than similar to my Mustang. Put a drop on it, put a little bit of better ride and suspension stuff. I think bigger brakes, slightly bigger brakes, and all kinds of aesthetic, like aero kits on it to make it look more aggressive. And I think they smoked the headlights was the other thing they did. And they called it the Maverick Lobo. Not really what the people wanted. People started to compare it to the Ranchero, and to be honest, it just doesn't have it. And it's not just because it's a 2.3 in there. I love the 2.3. I think it's a great engine. I think the 2.3 has done great stuff for Ford. I love my 2.3. They're easy to work on. They're very, very cheap. If I blow this engine tomorrow, it's really not a big deal. It's not as big of a deal as if I blew the 408 stroker in the GT. Or if you blew a Coyote, like, you're pretty fucked. It's either to the junkyard to get a new one, get a rebuilt one and pray to God that it's not a piece of shit, or go shell out like 20 G's for a brand new crate engine Coyote. But I digress. Shortly after they announced the Maverick Lobo, they also announced something that's, I personally think, and we've covered on the show, really, really good news. I just hope that Ford doesn't blow it by putting a supercharger on it. Ford is bringing us a lowered street truck, so a F-150 with a drop, better suspension handling for like street racing, street handling, not street racing. Street racing is not condoned here. And a naturally aspirated 450 horsepower out of the factory 5.0 Coyote. Now, the big selling point here is they were trying to market these for around 40,000 MSRP, which is really great. When people are shelling out shitloads of money for EcoBoost non-V8 engines, I have to say that because Jim Farley there does not know that his Coyote is not an EcoBoost because he's a fucking idiot. Non-V8 engines, so like your EcoBoost 6, your EcoBoost 2.3 and line 4, Ford is fucking you in the ass for like $40,000 on those before you even get to where they have the Coyotes parked for you to test drive. So to hear that a lowered street truck is going to be available for the consumer at $40K is really, really good. With a V8 in it, okay, with the Premier V8 in it. I just hope that they're not going to ruin it by slapping a supercharger on it, slapping a bunch of stupid shit on it that the consumer doesn't need, and then going, look, here's a $120,000 truck. Now, there's been some rumor that they've already started to do that a little bit, but that's not going to replace the fact that the Lobo is 40 G's, which is, in my opinion, right now in this economy, in this market, is very, very reasonable considering all the shenanigans that Ford has been pulling. Is available, street truck, to you 2026. Actually, might be 2027 by the time it rolls out, but that's basically it. That basically sums it up. The street truck / muscle truck / sport truck was a great expression of pure Americana. And I remember seeing the Ranchero for the first time on Roadkill. I personally did not know Ford had an answer to the El Camino. I knew the El Camino very, very well. I thought they were cool, but they're bow ties, and I don't touch bow ties. And the moment that I saw that thing come on stage with the with that song, man, I fell in love with that truck. And I wanted one. I almost bought a 64, I think it was. It was a little bit older. It had I believe it had a 300 inline 6 in it, which is the most bulletproof engine of all time. Not kidding. When they did the Cash for Clunker stuff and they were pouring the sugar mixture in there to like cement the engines and kill them, it took like 5 runs. They recorded like 5 runs of like that sugar mixture to cement the engines and kill them. And the 300s were still kicking. So great car. Slip up. Great truck. Wish that I had one. If I had the extra room, space, money, and time, I would 100% get one, but I think I might get one in a little bit later era or a little bit earlier era. Or might just go straight for the 68 and paint it exactly like the one from Roadkill. Or the show formerly known as Roadkill that shall not be named because I don't want to cease and desist letter. But this has been a very niche and special part of Americana for generations. If you are not enjoying the thrills of a bed in the back for extra storage, for shenanigans, for filling the damn thing up with water if you lay down a tarp in it and having your own mobile kiddie pool to have some beers, you are certainly missing out. And if you've never laid down a blanket in the back of a truck and stared up at the stars, I beg you to please get out and enjoy all of the great outdoors the United States has to offer you in your very own American-made Ford, Chevy, or Dodge pickup truck. Well,